take it over, Matish. You can do your screen share.
Thanks for that. Okay, welcome everyone. Very good morning and good evening or good afternoon. So the topic that I'm going to be showing in this particular implementation series is basically about authenticating your cloud pages with Okta. That's like the session one or the first part of it, which is going to be probably for 20 to 30 minutes. And the last 10 minutes, I'm going to be spending on a different topic, which is going to be using ngrok for quickly or rapidly developing cloud pages from your local machine. Now, both of them are equally interesting topic. The first one is a bit of a specific use case. I'll come to that. Now, a little bit about me. I'm a SFMC developer, senior SFMC developer at CloudKettle, and I have 4 years of experience in SFMC. I've done about 7 certifications in Salesforce and kind of working towards CDP certification. I've published an app in App Exchange, which is MGML Live Editor. It is free to use. You can go ahead and check it out. And I love JavaScript. That's kind of where I'm kind of getting into trying to build custom apps with Marketing Cloud using content block or journey builder custom apps. So these are, I would say, my areas of expertise or things that I like to do. Of recently, I've started picking up interest in Interaction Studio and CDP as well. You can connect me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm active in both of them. Okay, let's go to the next one. So, sorry. Now, since the crowd already knows that what is Marketing Cloud or what are cloud pages, I've basically scripted a couple of slides that explains what Marketing Cloud is and what Cloud Pages does. Now, just to put it briefly, Cloud Pages are more like a web server where you can host your web pages. But rather than, I wouldn't call it exactly as hosting, because all this hosting is handled by Salesforce. You can rapidly develop your pages, or you can have your HTML and CSS and script contents developed and deployed in your website domain or subdomain. We call it Center Authentication Package using Marketing Cloud. Cloud pages are not exactly CMS. That's a question that we get often. It's not exactly CMS, so don't confuse cloud pages with CMS. So we often use cloud pages for preference centers and to display offer details. So those are the typical use cases. Now, there are a few ways that you can secure cloud pages, and all these cloud pages are external pages, what it basically means is that customers would be seeing these pages, and these are not authenticated. Anyone who has the URL would be able to see these pages. Now, there are a few ways that you can secure these landing pages. One is using SSL certificate. A typical way, it basically adds an encryption layer from your web page, on your web page from your client application. So if somebody opens your web page on their browser, and all the data that goes between your browser and your server are secured using SSL certificate. So this comes as part of Center Authentication Package. If you have a Marketing Cloud account, you don't have to worry about it. It's part of Center Authentication Package. Now, the next way is you can secure your web page, a public-facing web page, by setting security headers, basically to avoid cross-site scripting or SQL injections. So all you can do is you can set up these, header items in your cloud page or in your any web resource, be it a JavaScript resource or XML content. You can set it, and your page would be secure. By secure, I mean a different entity who stays in a different domain would not be able to access your resource. So if you are hosting an HTML page or JavaScript, and if there's a different web page or application that is trying to access it from a different domain, they won't be able to do it because of this strict origin, because of the referral policy or cross origin policy. Now then, this is a pretty famous one, using Google reCAPTCHA v2 or v3 for securing your cloud page. This is basically to avoid any bots from submitting a page. I mean, as you know, cloud pages are basically for preference centers or for collecting leads. So if you have a lead submission form, and if the form is not secured with Google reCAPTCHA or something like that, anybody can write a simple bot that would basically submit thousands of records, and it would perform. It's called DDoS attack. It's basically submitting multiple requests and submitting multiple requests to your server. That way, your server wouldn't be able to handle all the incoming requests, and it would crash. So that's DDoS attack. Now, Salesforce, what we have noticed is that Salesforce internally monitors all the suspicious access, and it would shut down the page if it thinks that it is being attacked. Now, there are two versions of Google reCAPTCHA available. Now, what is Google reCAPTCHA in general? It's a script in plain language, right? It's a script that Google kind of puts it in your web page and checks the time when the form opened and the time when the form submitted. Is it following a particular pattern of attack? So that's basically Google reCAPTCHA. Now there are two versions that are available. So if you look at V2, you'd be easily able to identify. So you would have seen these annoying pop-up in some of the browsers when you try to submit a form. It would show, hey, select all the bridges or all the roads that you have. Now that's Google CAPTCHA V2. Now that's a older version. Now in V3, it's more of an invisible and non-intrusive one. So you might see some websites that uses this particular logo. It means that it uses Google reCAPTCHA V3. This is one way of securing your cloud page from against DDoS attack. Now, if you're creating APIs with your cloud pages, then you can use OAuth, and there are JWT functions. So OAuth basically uses JWT, and AmpScript has a function. I mean, Salesforce has recently released a AmpScript function called getJWT and getJWT by key name. You can use these functions to create OAuth tokens. Now, generally, the way OAuth token works is you'd have a OAuth page that would generate this auth token that would be valid for a certain number of time, and then your application or your third-party application or server application would receive it and then would use it to access any other pages that you have, or any other API pages that you have created in Marketing Cloud. Now, again, these are some of the ways that you can generally secure your Marketing Cloud pages against some types of attacks. But then, why do you want to secure your cloud page with Okta? Now, as I've mentioned this earlier, if somebody has access to your cloud page URL, they'll be able to open it. Now, if you do not want to do that, if you want a particular set of users from your company, from your organization, from your enterprise to have access to this page, and if you want to restrict this access to only those set of employees who has Okta access, then you'd go ahead. So you'd go ahead and implement Okta's identity management services. Now, is Okta the only way? It's one of the way. And since, we had a use case where the enterprise was already using Okta for identity access management. So we basically went ahead and integrated their existing Okta with cloud pages for the dashboard that we were building on. So there are a few other workarounds, things like building a simple login form where the username and password is stored in data extension. It's not a pretty secure way. So fun story is there is an AmpScript function called authenticated employee ID. You would assume that it would try to authenticate a user, but it doesn't. I mean, it used to work in micro pages, a previous version of cloud pages, but it doesn't work in cloud pages. So this is primarily the reason why we went into external services like Okta for authenticating. Now, what is Okta? It's an identity access management service provider. Now, what Okta does is it basically identifies whether whether you are the right user that you say you are, and whether you have those access levels. And Okta is pretty good. It's pretty developer friendly. They give a configurable widget that you can easily add to your web page and enable your web page to be Okta compliant. Now, Okta has multiple authentication methods like single factor, two factor, and multi-factor. If you're going with this implementation, you can talk to your Okta admin. They will be able to kind of choose the right approach. And the approach that we have selected is a multi-factor authentication. And Okta uses 4 different protocols. I mean, FIDO is one of the latest protocol. What it does is it uses even the biometrics information like your Face ID or fingerprints, all this for authentication. You have OpenID, OAuth, and SAML. So these are the normal protocols that you see in day to day. So for example, OAuth or OpenID is something that OAuth is something that Marketing Cloud uses for all the REST API authentication. Now, typically what happens is after this authentication is implemented, when you open your cloud page, it would basically contact Okta trying to authenticate the user. And once it is authenticated, it will come back to the landing page and it will basically load all the logic and talk to your data extension and whatever you have written. So if it is a dashboard, it will pull up the data for the dashboard. And in depth, the way Okta works is, so when you open your browser, it would show a sign-in window and sign-in widget. Basically, it's an integrated widget. So as soon as you enter your credentials in the widget, it would request for an interaction code, and with the interaction code, it would again try to validate and see if your username and password is correct. And if it is correct, it would ask for a token. And once a token comes through, the token gets kind of stored in your session. Now, this particular point is pretty important because everything else up until step 3 is basically handled by Okta SDK. So the SDK does all the work of validating or connecting with Okta server and then getting a token and everything. And then step 4 is where once the token is stored into your client application or your client browser, then all you have to do is anytime the user accesses your page or navigates from page 1 to page 2, all you're going to do is call this v1 user info endpoint and with the user details and configuration details. And Okta is going to basically, and of course, with the token details, you have to pass the token to user info, and Okta would say whether this particular token and the user is authenticated or not. Now, the way how embedded sign-in is going to look like is something like this. And once you enter your username, it's going to show different options of authentication. So this is something I mean, if you've used Okta, you would have seen this multiple times. To get this app or to get this widget, you need to have an Okta account and you need to have an Okta app created and whitelist your app URL, enable CORS and redirect, and you need to be using sign-in and auth.js. So this sign-in and auth.js is something that Okta provides as part of their JavaScript library. And you need to sprinkle some code, which we are going to see now. So the code snippets. So these are the two JavaScript libraries that Okta provides. We would basically be loading in our web page. And these are the configurations of your app. In the step 2 is basically creating an app, right? So you create an app and pass the configuration, like what is your client ID and host information. And you specify a particular div tag, a placeholder in your web page that says, hey, this is where you need to display your widget or the login widget. And in your JavaScript, you initiate a Okta sign-in method, and in this show sign-in to get tokens. So this is the method. I mean, there are a couple of methods. One is show sign-in method and show sign-in to get tokens. So the problem with the show sign-in method is it doesn't basically get a token that you can store in your local storage. So go ahead and use this method, and all you do is you tie up your sign-in widget to your div tag, and once you tie them up, you try to get an auth token by passing the configuration. I mean, you have already passed the configuration. You try to get the auth token, and once you have the auth token, you store it in your local storage. And yeah, anytime you want to validate if the user is valid, use this method Okta sign-in auth client token get user info. It would basically return the response telling you whether the user is valid. And to log out, all you do is Okta sign-in auth client sign out. And when you sign out, make sure that you clear the cookies and redirect to a particular URL. Now, the problem if you don't redirect to a particular URL is it would basically redirect to the home page. Home page is the host name. But if you typically go to Marketing Cloud pages, if you try to hit the home page, it would basically give you a 500 not found error. So this is another important point. You should always pass a post logout redirect URL. And to clear cookies, all you have to do is empty the Okta token storage and set the expiry date to pass date. Now, these are all the client-side code, right? Whatever I've shown you is basically client-side code. Now, this is the interesting part. This is the Marketing Cloud specific implementation, right? The code that I've shown you till now, you can basically use it in any web server, not specific just to Marketing Cloud, but to any web application. But this is something that is very specific to Marketing Cloud. Now, what happens is when your cloud page gets loaded, okay, you try to fetch the cookie value from your local storage by using this function called platform get cookie value. And once you get the cookie value, you basically parse that cookie, and then you try to validate, and then you make a post call. So you make a post call to Okta to validate whether the cookie that you have is valid or not. Now, this is a custom piece of code which is not something that Okta gives you. So now, once you make this post call, Okta would give you a response, and from the response, you can find out if the particular session is active or not, and then pass that variable. I mean, if it is active, then set a AMP script variable called active session, and then pass it down to your client-side code. And in your in your AMP script. So in your AMP script, what you do is you figure out if the session is if the active session variable is true. If it's true, then load content block 1. If it is false, load a different content block. So this is how you dynamically switch two different data or two different content if the user is authenticated versus unauthenticated. Now, to create Okta app, these are the things that we have to do. So we need to register for an Okta account, and then once you register, Okta would send you these details, and you can log in. You can log in into your Okta account, go to admin, and then create an application. And once you create an application, it would give you a client ID. So this is the create application window, right? So you create an application, it will give you a client ID. You need it for configuration, and you have to whitelist your URL. So whitelisting URL basically happens here. You go to security API and trusted origin, you'll be whitelisting, and then you launch and test. And most often you would see a lot of issues with authentication. So some of the or the most important point when you try to test this is always go to your Chrome's console, go to the network tab, and figure out if these JavaScript files are loaded, and then your introspect and user info calls are passing through fine, and check if it is successful. Now I'm going to show you a quick demo. Switch to a different screen. I'll show a quick demo, right? So I've already built this page, but I'm going to be also building this page if time permits. So what happens is when you load this page for the first time, see the content, the user is basically not logged in, and this basically says that, hey, user is not logged in. I mean, this content, if you notice, it basically comes from a content block. Okay, I am logged out. Sorry, one moment. Let me log in. Okay, I need to validate. Yeah. Okay. So this content comes from a content block. Now, what happens when I try to launch this? Okay. Now, when I click on next, and see, this presents me with options. What are the options that you would want to verify? I'll go with a push notification. See, it sends a challenge call to my application, to the Okta server. Now, the way it is going to look is something like this. So in my mobile, I have received this push notification. So once I click on yes and Face ID validated, yeah. See, now I'm logged in. Now the same way, I can go ahead and log out. Now, I mean, instead of this logged in page, you can basically display a different option, and I can log out, and this is all good. Now, this is all in good in theory. How does this implementation work? So I'm going to take the next 5 to 7 minutes probably to show you this particular implementation from scratch. Okay, let's go to okta.com, the first step, and let's register for a free account, a quick one. Business email. So you need a business email. Oh, this is the reCAPTCHA. This is one form of reCAPTCHA. Okay, you see here, now this has registered me and it has given me an URL or URL which I can log into. Now I'll log in here. It takes me to my dashboard. But before it takes me to my dashboard, it would ask me to authenticate myself. It would send me these details. Sorry, one moment. I'll have to open my email account. So I'm pausing my screen share just so I can open my email account. Okay, open this here. Okay, resume screen share. So what I've received in my email is I've received these details, right? So these are the details that I have, which is well and good. Now I'm going to be storing these details in Notepad. This is my temporary password. Let's go ahead and reset my account. Okay. Sorry. My username is this. And then I've got a temporary password. So once I reset new password. Okay, so this is where I need to set up an authentication method. So what I do is this creates a QR code. So once I have this QR code, all I'm going to do is go to my Okta app, click on add account, and then it would say, do you have a QR code? Yes, I have a QR code and I'm ready to scan. And I go to the app and scan. So right after I scan, it would basically show this particular account here. So account is added. So next time when there is a push notification, it would send the notification to my Okta mobile app. Okay. So other items, I'll set it up later. All right. So this is my Okta admin dashboard. Now, Okta dashboard, I'll go to the admin section. Now I want to ask for a push notification. Let's get a push notification here. Okay, see, as soon as I asked for a push notification, I've got a notification in my mobile. I validate it. And once I validate it, I'd be logged in. Good. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I need to create an application. So let's create a quick application, which is OIDC, OpenID Connect. So the protocol that we are using or the sign-in method that we are using is OpenID. And we are going to be using a single page application. Now, Okta provides you multiple ways of creating this integration with different servers. For example, this Angular, React, or you want to do it in Node.js, you can absolutely do that. Ours is SFMC specific one, so we are going with a single page application, SPA. So we'll call it SFMC dashboard, and we'll set up interaction. And now it is asking me for a sign-in redirect URI and sign-out redirect URI. I do not have them yet, so I'm going to be creating these redirect URIs right away. So what I do is I go to my marketing cloud instance, let's say I'll go to a different org. Okay. Let me reload this. Okay, I think my login session has expired. Sorry, let me log out and log in back again. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a single page application in Okta, sorry, in Marketing Cloud. So I can basically whitelist, or I can basically tell Okta that, hey, this is my application, and this is going to be the login, sign in and sign out URL. I mean, if you notice, sign in and sign out URL are going to be same in our application. Yeah. Okay. Let me create a quick one. Demo app. Okay. All I need is this particular URL basically to whitelist, to not exactly whitelist to inform that, hey, this is going to be my sign in and sign up URLs, and allow everyone in the organization to access this. Now we got the URL here. So as soon as we enter the URL and create the app, you see, we got our client ID created. Now that's nice. So we got our client ID. We want to take the client ID and store it here. Sorry, URL is this. So this is a redirect URL and our client ID. Now, the next item is we need to whitelist. We need to whitelist our Marketing Cloud URL, which is this URL. And what this basically does is SFMC app. This basically informs Okta that, hey, you're going to get requests from this particular host to access some of the script files, or to get authenticated tokens, and things like redirecting or script files. So we're basically informing Okta that if you get any request from this particular host, allow it. Don't basically block it. So we're basically whitelisting the URL. So we've got it whitelisted. Now these are the overall items we'll have to do in Okta. Now once we have this, all we're going to do is we're going to get into this code. I don't need any of those things to move. Okay, so there are a few configurations that we would change. First is the URL. So the redirect URL. In your server-side script, we set the redirect URL. I think this is the only page where you need to set this. Yep, this is the only page. And second is you need your client ID. You set the client ID here. And then the third is Okta host. So what you can do is you can go here. What you see here right under your username, this is your Okta host. You copy this host value. Okay, nice. So you got all these things. So I'll note this here. Okta host. I mean, this is basically something you would receive in your email as well. You have it here. Okay. Now, once you have this, all you have to do is copy this page and go to your Marketing Cloud page and get a HTML content and publish this. Okay, publish this. So once it is published, what we are going to do is we're going to launch this and check. Let's see if it loads all the required content. Oh, nice. It has loaded and it has logged us in. Reason is we are logged in this particular session. Now let's try to log in from an incognito window, right? This is an incognito window. Let me log out of other sessions. Okay, I'll sign out. Okay. So this is the new URL that we have created, or the new app that we have created. See, we are logged out here, and it presents me with the sign-in widget. So this is a new page that we have created. This works nice. And as soon as I enter my username,
Sorry to your screen is stuck, I believe. So is it for me only or for everyone?
It's
uh,
working.
No,
Yes.
we are able to see the.
okay.
Okay, let me refresh. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Thanks. Okay. So now I've got this. Now I'm presented with this security methods to verify. All I want to do is select push notification, and it would show me this here, and click on yes. Face ID validated. Nice. Token, keys, and everything. See, now I'm logged in. Now, few funny things, or few things that you would probably want to check is go to your is it application? Yeah, go to your application, cookies. Yeah, so Okta token storage, right? This is the most important thing. Now, this is something that we set, from our SSGS code. If you remember, I'll go to the SSGS code. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, here. So what we do is, as soon as the token is generated, we sorry, I'll have to go to the I opened up a different code. Yeah, this is where it is, I guess. Yeah, so this is where we set the token, right? So we get token from local storage and we set it in cookie, and this is this particular setup. As long as you have this token available, you'll be logged in. All right, and then you can basically sign out, and once you sign out, yeah, so once you sign out, what happens is the cookie becomes invalid. When I say invalid, the timer is set to expired time, so past time. So the expiry time is, since the expiry time is past time, it considers the cookie as deleted cookie. Now we can again log in multiple times and check it. So yeah, this is the overall demo for Okta thing. Yes, sorry. Do you have any questions, or should I proceed with the next one?
We do have a couple of questions, Matesh. Let me check.
Sure.
In case we need to secure an entire microsite built with cloud pages, each cloud page should have the SSJS code snippet where we ask Okta if the cookie is valid or not.
Absolutely. Yes. In each of the cloud pages, you need to have this particular SSJS code to just validate whether, to basically, you need to read your cookie. And once you read it, you need to make a post call and see if that particular token is valid or not. Now, you might be compelled into getting on with an implementation that says, hey, why don't I pass a variable called active session from page 1 to page 2? Now, that's a security issue, because if somebody is trying to open page 2 with a previously with a variable called active session and with value as true, they would still be able to open it. So that's exactly not a secure way. So anytime a user opens up the page, it's always good to make an API call to Okta and get a response to whether the particular token that you have is valid or not.
That's awesome. The other question is, can you use Okta as a way of verifying if someone is a paid subscriber to only give them access to your cloud page, or is this tool strictly for internal use because users need an Okta account?
No, this is strictly an internal use. I mean, as long so when would you give access to Okta? Only when that particular user is part of your organization. You won't be using this Okta for a third part, for a customer who's not part of your organization. Now, that being said, you can basically use Okta for two purposes, right? You can use it for identity and access management. So you can authenticate user, and you can also authorize. You can basically restrict the access of user to a particular domain. For example, you have two employees in your company, and if you want employee one who has a profile of SFMC manager to be able to see this dashboard, and you don't want an SFMC developer profile to see the dashboard. I mean, when I say profile, I'm talking about the Okta profile. You can basically implement those logic as well, where after you get the token, you can validate what kind of profile they have, and you can restrict the content to a particular profile and show to a different profile.
That helps. Other question is, if the user has disabled the cookies in their browser settings, what will happen?
Okta basically would not store or show this widget, because one of the first item that it tries to do is it would try to validate if you have if the widget or SDK has access to session storage and local storage content. So if your browser is, let's say, restricted, where you can't store cookies or you can't access local storage, then you're going to have problem implementing this. But that being said, using token storage is not the only option in Okta. Okta has multiple ways of implementing or using their sign-in solution. There are other ways that doesn't use a cookie, but still authenticates user. You can explore those areas. Okta documentation, developer documentation is pretty helpful in those aspects.
Wonderful, that clears it. One other question I see is, should we add these headers in spite of purchasing SSL? I think when you were in the second slide or very beginning of the session, this question was asked.
Yeah. I mean, so SSL, I wouldn't assume that anyone would have a website or a cloud page without SSL, because SSL is like the basic setting, right? I mean, almost all pages that you see must have SSL, should have SSL. That's like the standards. But then if you're going ahead with a web resource, for example, if you're hosting a JavaScript file or a JSON file or XML file, then it's a must, or it's always good to secure your page. So go ahead and secure or add the security headers. And also there are other ways, just a tidbit of information. There are other ways through which you can restrict based on IP addresses. For example, if you want to restrict request only from a particular IP, there's an AppScript function to get the IP of the request from request headers. So from the IP, you can basically figure out if this IP is in your list of whitelisted IPs or not. And then you can either accept the request or reject the request. So there's a pretty good article in one of a blog. I don't remember who wrote it, but there's a pretty good article that explains this concept.
Awesome. If you can share that link here, Matesh, I will link it to the recording as well.
Sure, absolutely.
And one last question, how can I get the token? I think you already covered this in the session. In the best interest of time, I can share the recording, and Yamini, you can watch it at a later point of time. And so we are good to go ahead with the next one.
Next one. Okay, next one is ngrok and vscode. This is going to be a pretty quick one, but a pretty interesting one. Now, you would always, everyone would have had this problem, right? You want to make some changes to your cloud pages, or you're developing your cloud pages. The first thing is you're developing your cloud pages, and you'll be like, okay, any small changes that I do, you need to copy the code from your local editor like Notepad++ or VS Code. Go to your cloud pages, paste it, click on publish, and then wait for it to publish until it will probably take 30 seconds or 1 minute, and then you would refresh the page and see the data. Now, with ngrok, you can basically skip all these items. You can type your code in your local VS Code or Notepad or any editor, and then you'll be able to see the changes in real time in your cloud pages. When I say in real time, you'll have to refresh the page out, of course. You don't have to republish it multiple times. So This basically avoids hundreds of republishing that you have to do. I remember, like, when I started my career, when I first built my cloud page, I had to publish this particular cloud page for like at least 100 times to get some basic functionality working. Now, I wish I had figured out or found out about ngrok earlier. So I'm going to show you how this works. So now we all know, I mean, VS Code, it's a text editor for building your web and cloud apps. And there's an add-on called Live Server. Now, the way this solution overall works is you're going to write your code in your local text editor like VS Code, and then expose it into a local server, which you can access it using localhost in port 80 or 8080, something like that. So VS Code and the add-on called Live Server basically enables you to do that. In VS Code, you can write your code, and Live Server would expose your particular code in localhost 8080. And to start your live server, all you do is you press on Command Shift P, and then you'd have this live server option. Now, ngrok. So ngrok is the most interesting one. You can download ngrok basically from this URL. And what it does is it exposes your local development server to internet. It would give you an URL that you can access from internet, something like this. To start ngrok, all you do is you call this particular command in your command line terminal or whatever. And once it is started, you would have a URL, a web URL that you can access from your mobile or from your internet connected device, and you'll be able to hit your local machine. Now, for ngrok and cloud pages, the way I used to work is I've created this simple script. What it does is typically in any instance of or any business unit that I work with, I would go ahead and create a cloud page with this particular piece of code. And what this does is it would basically take the tunnel URL. So tunnel URL is something that you get here, the web URL that you get here. So this cloud page or this web page takes two parameters, a tunnel URL and your file name. So once it gets both of them, all it does is it uses HTTP GET to load the data, and it would render it because it is treated as content, right? It would render the particular HTML content from your local, machine, and it would render in your cloud page in your particular business unit, and you'll be able to see the result. Now, that being said, never use this in your production environment, because what would happen is if a developer has this particular script in their business unit and have a cloud page, and if they want to inject some malicious script, they can absolutely go ahead and do it, because all they can do is they can change the index.html to a different file and have some code to delete all your data extension and run it, and it would still run and delete all your data extension. So never use this in your production environment. Use it very cautiously. And the second scenario is if you're going to pass multiple parameters in your multiple get parameters in your URL or query parameters, or if you're using query string, then you might have trouble using this particular method, because the solution works based on query parameter, the T and F parameters, tunnel and file name parameters. And also, if your code checks for your request origin, then you would have a problem, because the request origin would be ngrok router, and you might be whitelisting a different file or domain. So now let's go for a quick demo. Now, for the demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. Okay, so I have this particular script, and what it does is it would fetch all the, but I need to start my ngrok, right? But before that, let's create a new file, index.html. I hope this is visible. So I'll create this file, index.html. Now I have this file. Let me start this with live server. Okay, see it's starting, and I've got the live server started here. Now we'll go with hello world. Okay, so I've got this started. Now, I need to, okay, let me close these items. I need to start my ngrok, right? So to start ngrok, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up terminal. I'm heading it to ngrok and then HTTP and port. So now this is the interesting part, right? The port I'm going to be using is 81 because my live server has started in 81. Okay, nice. Now the ngrok server is started. This is my web URL. So if I try to access this, not just me, if any one of you try to access it, you would still be able to see this, not from my local machine. Even from my mobile, I can try accessing this, or any of you can try accessing this, you would see this hello world. Now, I'll tell you the beauty of this, right? I can change this page, hello world, welcome to community, and add this. Oh, of course, I need to use a BR tag because it is an HTML. See, I edit something in my local session, and it gets immediately displayed. Now, this is not a cloud page yet. Let's go ahead and create this cloud page, right? Now, okay. So to create this ngrok router cloud page, I need the code. Where is the code? The code is here. All I'm going to do is copy this code. Router demo page. Okay. Okay. I want to go ahead with schedule and publish. Nice. So this is my router URL now. Now, if you see, this is my router URL, and I've got my tunnel, which the tunnel URL is this. So I can take the tunnel information from here. So I want to say $t is equal to this, and file name file is index.html. If I open this up, now you see here, this is from localhost. This is from ngrok internet URL through internet. Now, if I open this URL, this is from your marketing cloud page. You see, what you've basically done is your local file is now loaded in marketing cloud page, which is well and good. We are now it's cloud page. You make any changes here, come and refresh this page. The change is immediate. You do not do any publish. You do not copy your code, paste it in your cloud page. You do not do any publish things. I mean, you can basically log out of your marketing cloud instance once you have this URL. If you're going to go with development, developing things, you don't have to have your marketing cloud session active. You can basically add a new line as well, new line, and voila, you got this, right? Now the same way, let's try to do this, right? This particular script, what it does is it fetches all the data extension in your instance. So I got this code from amscript.xyz. It's a pretty easy one. And I refresh this page. See, I have all the data extensions in my instance. Now you can go ahead and do all the changes that you want without having to republish this. So yeah, this is the demo on ngrok and vscode. Any questions on this?
I don't see any questions, Matesh. You can go ahead.
Okay. All right, so that's the ngrok one. Oh, so the script, in case if you're interested, I use the script from here. Now, once you have this any cloud page that you would want to develop, you can basically edit in your local VS Code and render it in your in your cloud page and see it easily. And once all your local development is done, you can copy the page and paste it in your cloud page and deploy it for one final time. Now, there are alternate ways that I've seen in the market, or I've seen the community use things like using GitHub. Write the code, push it into GitHub, and then use the GitHub URL to kind of load the cloud page. So, but again, GitHub push and then getting it, that's a bit slower, and this is much more faster and easier to work with. That basically sums up my demo or session. Or yeah,
that's really wonderful, Matesh, and I appreciate that you included all the code snippets, and your slides are very detailed. So we're going to share that slide deck with all the attendees and the registrants. The recording also will be uploaded shortly to the YouTube channel, and I have pasted the playlist details in the chat window. Anybody has any other questions? I think we're good for today, Matesh. I really thank you for speaking on this interesting topic. Not everybody will get some opportunity to implement this. So when they have to implement it, it is going to be really helpful.
And thank you so much for the opportunity. I mean, I hope I hope the session was useful. I mean, I've basically taken up 1 hour of your time, and I hope I was able to give something to you. Was able to you gain something out of this session.
Definitely,
thank you
it's
so
really
much,
worth
everyone.
every minute. It's really worth every minute.